Back here on the Alex Strouf Show, presented by Cream City Central, and we go to the phone lines now. As one of my best friends in the business, one of the goats in the business, the goat of DC, maybe. That's up for debate. He is the host of, in my opinion, with Denton Day on SB Nation Radio. He's got a show in a couple hours, and he's nice enough to take the time to come talk sports with me. It is Mr. Denton Day. Denton, how are you, my friend?
What's going on, Alex? How you doing, man?
All good on this end. So we led the show off with this, but I want to ask you about this. I got my first COVID test on last Thursday. That's horrible. Have you had to go through that yet?
No, I've gotten one flu test ever in my life. I was in college, and I thought I was a little under the weather. I went to this very nice nurse, and she asked me, she's like, have you ever had a flu test? And I said, of course I have. And then she administered a flu test, and I quickly realized I have never done this before. Sucked, and I'm very afraid of getting an actual COVID test because of that experience. So I have not gotten one yet.
Let me make it sound as pretty as it is. So they stuck it into my left nostril, right? Because I was in my car, and it felt like she was gonna pop my eyeball with the Q-tip thing. So maybe I'm just a big baby, but that's how my experience went. But I was negative, so that's a positive. But nonetheless, it was no fun.
Yeah, that doesn't sound appealing at all. It sounds brutally terrible.
Yeah, it was. But anyway, let's go into sports. No more COVID talk. So Cam Newton, Patriot. We talked about it a little bit there in the break, but let's do it live. Obviously, so I this is how I started my segment with it. We kind of all expected it, but when it happened, it was still really exciting.
I think the timing of it was kind of more the interesting thing.
Yeah.
The way I saw it, because you're right, we did kind of expect it to fit, at least somewhat made sense. We didn't know how much. We've heard a lot of things about how the Patriots really like Stidham, but we don't really know how much they actually do. He played really well in like a preseason game, so now all of a sudden he's the heir to Tom Brady. Like that was always a little skeptical, but the timing of it was really interesting because we had thought in like April and May maybe that it made a whole lot of sense, like they're going to sign Cam Newton, and then for whatever reason they didn't. And then they just randomly did on a Sunday at the end of June. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they had the punishment for the video allegations.
Yeah.
Video taping of Cincinnati. I don't think that's a coincidence that those two things happened the same day. But I would say the timing of it was a little strange and off-putting. But hey, I mean, Bill Belichick has a resume to prove that his decisions are what's right. But the timing was definitely something that I found interesting.
Denton Day is my guest, and Denton, you bring that up, and that is like the ultimate public relations move ever. I mean, they signed Cam Newton, and nobody realized they got fined $1.1 million and also lost a third-round draft pick. I mean, that is just unbelievable how they just kind of threw that to the side like it was nothing. It was planned. I mean, it had to be.
I think what might be even better, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I forgot that investigation was even happening.
Yeah, me too.
Such jam-packed offseason with so many different stories. Like, I completely forgot that they once videotaped Cincinnati. I still think it's hilarious because Cincinnati was terrible last year. But that in itself was also surprising. Like, oh, yeah, that's right. They were getting investigated for doing something that they did like a decade ago and won a Super Bowl because of it.
I love it. Denton Day is my guest here on the Alex Strouf Show. Denton, you mentioned Jarrett Stidham. I said I'm not sold on him. This got changed, the Stidham slander show, apparently. There's no way he's the starter week one, right? Or is there actually a possibility in your mind?
I mean, if Cam Newton gets hurt, he's probably a starter in week one, but I feel like that would be the only option. If Cam Newton is healthy and on that roster, there's no way in hell Jarrett Stidham should be the starter. This offseason has been really, really weird because we went from the beginning of the offseason when you looked at Jarrett Stidham, you're like, all right, this is the guy for New England in the future. He's maybe not the best right now, but he's the best they got. There's some forward with unless they draft a quarterback. They, of course, didn't draft a quarterback. They're like, all right, it's the Stidham show, and they're in a rebuild. And somewhere along the lines, he like became this divine gift of God to the Patriots, and everybody loves Jarrett Stidham. Like he is the guy that is going to be the next Tom Brady. I don't know if I get like lost in translation. I don't know when he just became this divine gift. I don't know why he all of a sudden was the next Tom Brady. So I don't know why everybody loves him as much as they do. I understand that they saw him in practice and he looked really, really good in practice. But I've seen a lot of players. You've seen a lot of players. There's been a lot of players that look really good in practice and didn't look good in the game. So Cam Newton should be the starter unless he gets hurt, and that's the only way I'm looking at this situation.
Hey, man, in practice, I was a hell of a JV basketball player. Let me tell you, and that really translated to my 0.6 points per game. Denton Day is my guest at this time. So, final takeaway from this contract. I mean, he's only making $7 million. Do we really believe this was his only offer? I know the Browns were talking to him, didn't throw him an offer, and the Patriots get him on $7 million. That's insane to me. He's a former MVP.
I guess it again just goes back to the timing. Like when he was released, we'd already kind of gone through a majority of the quarterback carousel. You look at the money across the league, there are a lot of teams that have a lot of open money, and the teams that do have a lot of open money have some form of a plan at quarterback for the next 2 to 3 years. So it's like, do we really want to put a lot of money in the pocket of Cam Newton and possibly have him come up here and then kind of mess what we had going on up? But when you look at New England, if you can get him on a cheap deal, you're not 100% in the corner of Jarrett Stidham at least yet, and that's clear by them signing Cam Newton. So it seems to make a whole lot of sense. I know there was some sort of talk between him and Cleveland. As fun as that would have been, it would have been an absolute nightmare for a guy like Baker Mayfield. And
Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski has already come out and said, like, hey, I'm willing to bench Baker Mayfield, which is a crazy thing to say as a first-year head coach. But, I mean, kudos to you for being out there and speaking your mind in front of a microphone. I look at across the league, and because there are so many teams that seem to have some sort of plan at quarterback, it did make the Cam Newton thing hard. Just fit-wise in so many different spots. Although I did think a team like Denver would have been smart if they would have jumped on the opportunity while they had him. They're just all in on Drew Lock.
Denver is an interesting option, but I'm high on Drew Lock. I don't know how you feel about him, but I'm high on Drew Lock. I guess we could just switch gears. We're just going to free flow here. Drew Lock, Denver. I don't know. I think they could be a sleeper now that we have a 7-team playoff there in the AFC West.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I think their offense is built to win. I mean, I look at Jerry Jeudy, and that dude he's so good.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so unbelievably good. And then they added KJ Hamler, too, later on in the draft. And then you add Melvin Gordon during the offseason. So that Denver offense is going to be really, really good. It is just depending on what are you going to get from Drew Lock. I don't hate Drew Lock by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if I'm over the top sold on the guy yet, but if there was a scenario where he would have not looked as great in the first 4 to 5 games, I would have thought if Cam Newton was still around, he would be the obvious option. Just plug him right in, and then your offense takes a massive leap forward because we know defensively they're still great. And as long as you have Von Miller on your team, defensively you're still going to be A-okay because Von Miller is fantastic. So I like Denver. I think they're going to be a sneaky team to watch, especially in that division. I don't think they're anywhere near as good as Kansas City because I think you look at Kansas City and Baltimore, they are head over heels better than everybody else in the AFC, and you can make a real argument they're head over heels better than everybody else in the NFL.
Yeah.
But I do think that Denver could have a sneaky good year this year.
No, I think that's well said. Denton Day is my guest at Denton_Day on Twitter. He's the host of In My Opinion on SB Nation Radio. He's live in a couple hours, folks, so he's going to be our encore here after we get off the air. Denton, let's move to the NFC East. That's where you are. You're in D.C., but I want to ask you about a team you don't like so much. Dallas. Mike McCarthy's their head coach now. They've locked up Dak Prescott on that $31 million tender. Number one, holy smokes. But number two, they finally got it done. Are they the favorite in the NFC East this year?
I would think on paper they should be because on paper they were the favorite last year. I mean, again, you look at their offense and they have all of the boxes checked. Their offensive line is good. They have their quarterback. Now they have 2 really, really good wide receivers. Last year they had Amari Cooper, and Amari Cooper was good. But you add CeeDee Lamb to that. CeeDee Lamb's going to be awesome. He was my favorite of the trio. You know, we had the trio of wide receivers in the draft with Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy and then CeeDee Lamb. I think I like CeeDee Lamb the best, just barely out of all of those guys. So you add him to the fray, and then, of course, you have Ezekiel Elliott. So on paper, offensively, they should be one of the best, if not the best, in the NFC. But for whatever reason, defensively, they just couldn't put it all together last year. And even offensively, they were putting up big-time numbers, but a lot of it came in garbage time. So I would hope that you look at McCarthy offensively and you think, all right, this is the guy that has experience. Obviously, you guys know from his days in Green Bay, He's been to a Super Bowl. He should know how to make this work. But I don't know what the leash on Mike McCarthy is. And I do think that's going to play a factor. And I do think Dak Prescott's contract is going to play a factor. But I'm not, unless something drastically changes here, I don't expect him to sign the long-term deal. And that gets annoying after a while. Like, he's going to constantly get these questions week after week after week, day after day after day. I mean, trust me, it happened to Kirk Cousins when he was here in D.C., and eventually that does become some form of distraction. They've really missed the mark when it comes to signing him to a long-term deal. They should have done it 2 years ago, or when they should have done it when we were having the conversation is he worth $24 million? I mean, imagine how crazy that is now. Like, we're talking about is he worth $40 million, but at one point it was 24. They didn't sign him then, so I think they missed the mark there. they have a short window. They have a really, really short window. I think it's this year and next year. Then after that, I don't know what this Dallas team becomes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with all the money they've been throwing at those offensive pieces, but we will see. Let's go to DC though. What do you make of Dwayne Haskins, Denton? I know I've asked you this question several times, but it's been a few months since the last time I asked you. So, where do you stand now?
You can ask me this question as many times as you want. I'll give you the exact same answer. I am all aboard the Dwayne Haskins train. I love the kid. I think he's become a real good off-the-field leader this season, or this off-season specifically, with a lot of the stuff going on in D.C., and I do think that correlates to how you play on the field. I think when you're a much more confident person off the field, you play better on the field. So I'm looking forward to him taking a big step forward. It's going to be nice to have a coaching staff that actually likes him. Imagine how great that must be. So I'm a big Dwayne Haskins fan. I'm expecting him to do some really, really big things. And a lot of people have been hating on my boy this offseason. I'm expecting them to prove some people wrong.
And you're going to be behind him, flaunting that mouth of yours all the way to the bank, man. Once he goes off, if he does, of course, right?
That's what I'm good at. My best quality.
So this Haskins versus Jones battle, you're higher on Haskins, I assume, right? Oh, you're laughing already. Oh, good God.
Oh yeah. Nah. You can take your little Danny Dimes. You can have him. I'm riding with my guy Dwayne Haskins, and I'm sleeping like a baby at night, making that decision. No questions asked.
I can take my Danny Dimes. Denton Day, my guest, at Denton_Day on Twitter. A couple more for you, Denton. Let's move to the AFC North, and I'm going to get into this in a few minutes, but I don't know if you saw this, but I went on a huge tangent yesterday as Pro Football Focus did a best wide receiver in the NFC North hit. Talked about Kenny Galladay, talked about Adam Thielen. They talked about Marvin Jones with no mention of Devontae Adams. I'll do this in about 10 minutes, but I just wanted to get that out of my system. NFC North, who do you think wins it? I view them as one of the more competitive divisions this year in the NFC.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, because I think you look at a team like Green Bay, and as long as you have Aaron Rodgers, you're going to have some form of chance.
Yep.
I still like Minnesota a little bit, but at the same time, I do think losing Stephon Diggs is going to be huge. I know he didn't get along with everybody there last year, but he's still a great football player. And I don't know if they got the return that they were looking for, at least in terms of media production with him. I love Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to be awesome down the road, but I don't know if you can expect him to step in and fill Stephon Diggs' shoes right away. And they're going to have to figure their offense out, because it seems like every year they've had Kirk Cousins, they have waited until like week 5 to really put their offense together. And I don't think you can do that this year. I'm with you when it comes to the best wide receiver in that division. I think it's Devontae Adams by a pretty significant margin. Yeah. I mean, I like the guys in Detroit. I like Adam Thielen, but I don't think it's really close. I mean, you look at Devontae Adams, and you can see in just some of the games this season, it was the game against Philadelphia, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong there, where he got hurt midway through, and that Packers offense took an immediate hit because of it. I mean, Devontae Adams he's flirting with top 5 guy in the league right now. So to have him not be the top receiver in that division doesn't make a ton of sense to me. I know Pro Football Focus has their unique way of looking at it, but I love Devontae Adams. I still think Green Bay is the team to beat because of Aaron Rodgers, but I do think between them, Minnesota, and I mean, I don't know how much I trust the other two teams, quite frankly. I don't trust Nick Foles in the regular season. I know he's great in the postseason.
Well, you're not even gonna acknowledge Mitch Trubisky. You think Nick Foles is the day 1 starter?
I think he should be. I don't know why we're still doing this Trubisky stuff here. I think that they really missed the mark on him. He wasn't able to hit his stride. And then I think Detroit might have a potential to be better than they were last year, but I don't know if I see them competing for the top spot. So I think, again, it's going to be between Minnesota and Green Bay for the 4th year in a row now. I mean, I guess Chicago had that one good year, but I think I'm still leading Green Bay in that one.
I like your answer, and you're playing to your audience. Well done. It's almost like you're a radio guy. Last division question for you. I'm going to skip the West today. Let's look at this NFC South and try to make some sense of it for me, because it is looking like a ton of fun, right? We had some shuffles in quarterbacks, obviously Bridgewater now in Carolina, Brady obviously in Tampa. Who's your favorite? Is it still New Orleans?
Well, it's funny because you look at the quarterbacks just alone, and Teddy Bridgewater is the worst quarterback. But if Teddy Bridgewater is the worst quarterback in your division,
good division.
It's a pretty good division. Yeah, I mean, you got a pretty nice quartet there. I still think New Orleans is built the best. when it comes to all facets. But I like Tampa Bay's defense. I think I like their defense a little bit more than I like New Orleans' defense, but I still trust Drew Brees. And I think it's going to be really interesting. I know we've talked about this before, but transitioning from Tom Brady in New England to Tom Brady in Tampa and not being able to work out with his guys as much as he wants to. I know he is working out with his guys despite the NFLPA's cries for him to stop, but not getting that face-to-face time with Bruce Arians and with everyone else on the team, I do think is going to hinder their production and productivity at least a little bit to start. So because of that, I still like New Orleans. But the Falcons are going to be a fun team, too. They got 10 first-round picks on offense. I mean, that's going to be a really, really fun team to watch. They just have to get their head out the reins because it seems like for really the past decade, I mean, you can kind of take the Super Bowl year aside, although that collapse in itself did wonders to that team. They seem like they're always so good on paper. They can never just put it together just the right way. So I'm looking forward to see what they can do because I want to see Julio Jones play in the postseason, right? He's one of the best wide receivers. He's fun to watch. He dominates games. I want to see him in the postseason. The Atlanta rest of the team just kind of has to pick up their weight a little bit.
You always bring the fire. I've got one more for you. Denton Day, my guest. We've been asking pretty much all of our NFL guests this question the last few weeks, so I'm going to throw it at you. Your way too early prediction for NFL MVP in 2020 is?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it's exceptionally difficult to go back-to-back, so I don't think Lamar Jackson's going to win that. Okay. I still think there's some things that Lamar Jackson can get better at in terms of throwing the football, and I would really like to see him run a lot less this year just for his health because that dude doesn't slide. And as a guy that was a huge fan of Robert Griffin in his tenure in D.C., you eventually have to learn how to slide or terrible things are going to happen. So I don't think Lamar Jackson is going to win because I do think he'll focus on being a little bit more of a passer, and I think his numbers will go down a little bit. I still like Patrick Mahomes. I've always been really curious. How would last year's MVP race have played out if Mahomes didn't get hurt multiple times? Because he had that knee dislocation and made him miss a few games. He had some ankle issues that kind of hindered his production a little bit. So I think Patrick Mahomes is still the favorite. I know that's a boring answer. I don't want to. I just can't come out of left field with somebody, right? Like, I'm not going to be like, I think Dwayne Haskins is going to be MVP. Like, it's asinine. It's not true. Like, Dak Prescott's going to, that's not how it's going to be.
Hey, man, I think
top quarterbacks.
I think.
Are you a Dak Prescott for MVP guy? Oh, no.
I'm not that deep into it, but I don't think it's insane. I mean, I can try to make my case if you'd like, but I mean, you look at his stats last year, right? Second in passing yards. Now he's on a contract year. You mentioned the CeeDee Lamb edition. That's huge. And I think McCarthy is a quarterback whisperer. So I think it's possible. I'm not going to pick him. I'm riding with Russell Wilson at this point. But I don't think Dak Prescott is a crazy choice. It's a lot less crazy than somebody like Dwayne Haskins in my mind.
I think I like the Russell Wilson pick because remember, he was like right on the doorstep last year. They just need one more wide receiver. Now, if only there was at least one or two wide receivers that were really good and looking for a team out there that Seattle could possibly sign. But they need one more piece. And I think when you put one more piece on that Seattle team with Russ and with Tyler Lockett, I thought Tyler Lockett played really well last year, but I don't know if I see him as a true number one guy. I think that team could be really dangerous. So I like the Russ pick. I like the Mahomes, but I think I'm still having to go with Patrick Mahomes here. Unless he gets hurt, the dude just is so unbelievably dominant. I don't see anyone else beating him out for that award.
Yeah, he's a special breed, as are you, my friend. Really appreciate the time, Denton, and we'll do it again soon, all right?
Always a pleasure, Alex. Thanks for having me.
That's Denton Day, host of In My Opinion with Denton Day on SB Nation Radio. Stopping by to do a little NFL chatter for about 20 minutes. I mean, listen, you heard that guy. He just knows Green Bay. He's just throwing out things that happened in a Green Bay Packers game last year, and he lives in D.C. Like, come on, dude. Unreal. So he always brings the fire. Always a pleasure to talk with Denton.